How's everybody doing? Welcome to my podcast. This is Johnny Concert Podcast, and I'm Johnny Concert. So, Led Zeppelin. I like to say that Rush is my favorite band of all time. Pink Floyd is the most amazing band of all time, but Led Zeppelin is the best band of all time. And they started off, when you're delving into a subject, the best way to start is you ask the question, what's the significance of the title? Why is Led Zeppelin called Led Zeppelin? Well, the story, I believe it's a little bit of an urban myth, but it's also, I've heard it different ways. I've heard Pete Townsend and Keith Moon, but basically the first time the guys from The Who heard the band, they said that band's going to go over like a Led Zeppelin. Of course, the Zeppelin being a balloon, like the B.F. Goodrich, the Goodyear blimp. It's like a blimp. It's a Zeppelin. And if it's full of lead, it's not going to fly very well. So they said that band's going to go down. I heard it was Keith Moon, but I've heard other people say it's Pete Townsend. But suffice it to say, the guys from The Who said it's going to go down like a Led Zeppelin. So they said, oh, yeah? We're taking that from you. We're going to name it Led Zeppelin. We're going to keep that. And heck of a name. It's just fantastic. But so you start at the very beginning. If you don't know the reason something's called something, you don't want to go to question 2 till you have question 1 nailed away. So it started because Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones, they were both studio musicians. And they both worked at the studio where they could play anything. And so there were 6 studios in one studio. And they would sit in the lobby and wait for somebody to call in. They needed an extra hand in one of the sessions. And so there'd be days when they would play on a reggae album, a Burt Bacharach album, a rock album, a blues album, all in one day. And both John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page were capable of doing that. They were masters and are masters. So then in the meantime, they're sitting in the lobby talking, and Jimmy Page has all these ideas in his head. He said, let's form a band. At the time, he was playing in the Yardbirds also. So the Yardbirds, imagine this: Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, and Jimmy Page in the same band. Are you kidding me? So Jimmy Page played bass for a while because Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, he played bass to start out. And so the Yardbirds had some dates and they broke up. And so they had the date, they broke up, they still had concert dates booked. So Jimmy Page formed, it was going to be called the New Yardbirds. And then the Who heard it and and made the famous quote, and then they kicked it off as Led Zeppelin. Their first concert in the United States, interestingly enough, we're coming from the Alley Studios here in Denver, Colorado. And it was in Denver, Colorado. It was Led Zeppelin opened up for Spirit and Vanilla Fudge. And it was December 26, 1968, at the Auditorium Arena in downtown Denver, Colorado. And booked by Barry Fay, who's our concert guru that he's no longer with us, but he's our Bill Graham in Denver, in Colorado. So can you imagine that show? And poor Spirit and Vanilla Fudge that had Led Zeppelin open it up for him. You don't want to follow those guys, trust me. So the first album, the date says 1969 on it. And so that concert was December 26, 1968. So it was right in the thick of things. And this is also 69, so it's up at 2. But so that's, it was just all coming together. And can you imagine 68 and 69, just they coming out with 2 of the best albums of all time. Wow. And then the word would spread. So by the time they got to the coast, the tour got to the coast, they kept playing bigger and bigger arenas because everyone was coming real quickly to realize the magnificence and brilliance and magic of Led Zeppelin. So Led Zeppelin, their first, I would say, you could argue every album is incredible start to finish. I want to do a whole series on each album separately, and along with other albums that are amazing start to finish. There's no weak link in them. Then I call them needle lifters. You never want to lift the needle and go to the next song, because every single work on the album is right where it should be, just how it should be, and phenomenal. So that's, you can argue it. Coda obviously is more like there wasn't really a complete album. But every single album before that, there's really not one. There's no weak link. There's really not one song that you're like, oh, skip this song. You know, there really isn't. That's that good. So I still, I still think of Song Remains the Same. And growing up, listening to that, watching that, whoever's parents were out of town, we go to their house on the weekend, and we take some mushrooms or something and watch Song Remains the Same over and over and over again. And still to this day, I watch the VHS copy once or twice a month just to refresh. I mean, it's still that good. It still stands the test of time. It still holds up after all these years. And when I was in high school, we'd go to the keg party Friday nights, and we'd drink keg beer. The next morning you wake up with a horrendous hangover. So I'd go into the bathroom, take a couple hits of pot, and blow it out through the fan, and then I'd put on side 3 of The Song Remains the Same, which is No Quarter going into Stairway to Heaven. And it'd be real quiet in the house and just kind of doze back off and just, memorize every single note of that side 3 of Song Remains the Same, which was released in '76. Now, the concerts took place in '73 at Madison Square Garden. I'm trying to remember if there were 3 or 4 or 5 concerts. I think there might have been 5. And then they took them 3 years after that to pick the best songs off each night they played, and then they add in the scenes and the rest of the movie part. Took them 3 years. So it came out in '76, the movie did. But the dates were in '73 at Madison Square Garden. And just as good as anything's ever been in the history of the world. So it was just a band hitting on all cylinders, catapulting through space, 100 miles an hour, all engines firing, and not even stopping to think about anything, just on their game. And it's just like a whirlwind, and everything's just happening, and it just worked unbelievably well. So they and that Song Remains the Same, they do. Each member of the band gets a little sequence in the movie where it's like a fantasy part. And so you have John Paul Jones is in No Quarter, and the No Quarter is the marauders, the masked riders at night are taking care of business, and they have to go off and take care of things and then come back home to their loved ones. And it all coincides perfectly with the jam session in the middle of No Quarter. To me, it's as good as anything could ever be. So then let's see, Robert Plant does this scene. It's kind of a medieval scene where he's a sword. He's got to do a duel with his sword. Swords fight, and then of course John Bonham has this race car scene in Moby Dick and does a 25-minute drum solo or whatever it is. That's just, come on. So at the end of the drum solo, he throws his sticks away. He's hitting the skins with his hands. And then there's one part of the video where he's just going 100 miles an hour, and he's like a blur. And it's just like this whole section where he's just going. You're just in awe. And John Henry Bonham. So that's just magical. Then Jimmy Page is he's the magician that climbs the mountain, and he's dazed and confused. And then when he gets to the top, and then he waves his sword back and forth, and this trails of light come through, like a rainbow spectrum of light come through, and that's right when you're on hallucinogens and you see that, you're like, whoa, fucking phenomenal. You just can't even. Unless you have to see it. Yeah, if you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're following along. You're like, yes, you're so with me. And if you haven't, you owe it to yourself to check that out. I could talk about Led Zeppelin for years and years and hours, but so I'm going to keep going deeper and deeper into them. Another thing I want to mention is there's a Netflix documentary on the guys that wrote this or designed this cover, and. There was these guys that lived in a flat with the Pink Floyd guys, and I think it was Jeff Beck, a couple other guys, and they all started, everyone in the flat, our suite mates all started getting famous. And these guys didn't play instruments. They weren't in the bands. They're like, well, what are we supposed to do? And so they went to design school, and one was a photographer, and the other one did graphic designs, and they came up with some of the best album covers of all time. They did a lot of Pink Floyd, because they were their buddies. They did this one for sure. This one they went to Ireland, and there's these rocky shoals where the water comes in off the sea, and covers them, and then comes back out. And it's kind of anyway. They had to wait. They had to wait till the time was just perfect, when the tide was right, and they had the kids up there, and it was just. I mean, you watch this documentary, it's just magical how these guys worked. But I digress. So Led Zeppelin is. I don't know how far to go on this one. I don't know if I want to take the whole. What I want to do is a series on each album to go through them, because they're just that good. And a couple other interesting points. Jimmy Page, they invented the reverse echo. Woman, woman, you need it. Where the echo comes before the response, or before the initial call. It's not a call and response, it's a response to call, as it were. And so that's, I mean, along the way, these guys are making history and inventing new studio techniques and covering new ground, breaking new ground. Not covering new ground, they're breaking new ground. And as they go, and it's just it's just phenomenal. It's just so great what they did. So another point I was going to talk about is that so I think about on physical graffiti. So when I was growing up, I had a little tape deck next to the side of my bed. Just the flat tape deck, like this big that you plug in, barely has one little tiny speaker in it. And so then my dad got this huge stereo system, these Altec A7s, stood about this tall with the horns on top. And much to my mother's dismay, they were in our living room. He had a Kenwood KR72 receiver, an Elcar turntable. And so I went to the first two albums I bought were Led Zeppelin Physical Graffiti and Deep Purple Made in Japan. And you would put on In the Light on Physical Graffiti, and the panning, because Jimmy Page did most of it was in his head. He did the studio work. He did the engineering and mixing of the albums. And so the panning and the way he mixed those albums is unbelievably. It's an experience unto itself. It's ethereal, and you're like floating at some points, and you're enveloped into the music, the way he mixes these tracks. And he was very experimental the way he would do it too. There's stories about him recording the drums on Led Zeppelin 4 at this castle, and they put the microphones way down the hall in this echoey hall, and had John Bonham play the drums for what was it? Not Misty Mountain Hop, but it's like When the Levee Breaks, and Four Sticks and stuff like that. And I think it's When the Levee Breaks. Like, oh man! And so you hear the echo through this hall of this castle, and they ran the microphone lines hundreds of feet to get this perfect sound, and that's how Jimmy Page rolled. And so I've got this pair of Dunlavy speakers. Also, I've got a bunch of speakers that are most of them stand about 6 feet tall. And the Dunlavys are about 6'2". Each one weighs 180 pounds, and they're configured where 10 inches on the top and bottom, and then 4.5 inch mids and one central tweeter. But if you listen to In the Light on the Physical Graffiti on these speakers, and there's a part where he goes dun 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 dun, and he repeats that part 4 times. Jimmy Page does. And so when you're listening to these speakers, the sound will go from the upper left to the lower right, dun, 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 and it was like a lightning bolt going through the air from the upper left to the lower right. So again, dun, 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 and the third time, dun, 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 dun. Then the fourth time, dun, 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 the other way, from the upper right to the lower left. I mean, who does that? How many people even got to hear that? It was just the first time I heard it, I looked at my buddy. I was like, "Did you just hear what I heard?" I mean, that was insane. And so it's just like to the foresight. He was way ahead of his time on these the mixing he would do. But to have that lightning bolt go from across, and then to switch it on the fourth one, I mean, come on, that's just sheer genius, sheer genius. And so there's a million little tricks like that, a million little stories like that about Led Zeppelin. So join me. I'm going to keep talking about Led Zeppelin, and we're going to keep it short today, and then we're going to pick it up and dissect each album of the best band of all time. And so join me. Thanks for watching my podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to leave a comment about your favorite Led Zeppelin story, or your favorite album, or your favorite album that's no weak link, no needle lifters on it. And we'll see you out on the road, and thanks for watching. Johnny Concert, rock on.
Johnny,